Consider leaving New York immediately if you don't want to become the next victim of this devastating crisis.
25% of this city's population lives in poverty on purpose.
I'm 60 years old. I worked 35 years. I'm a college graduate. I have no record. I have never been arrested or accused of anything, and I sleep on the sidewalk.
I had a job, he had a job. We lost both of our incomes at once, and that's when we started sleeping in parks.
Not with my kids, thank God. I have gone through it on my own when I was 16, and I don't want that life for them. So,
Don't let the sparkling skyscrapers, the dazzling Broadway lights, or the proud image of the Statue of Liberty deceive you. New York is no longer a symbol of the American dream. It is becoming the epicenter of an unprecedented homelessness crisis in modern American history. What's even scarier is that this is no longer just a story about the poor. This crisis is sweeping through all classes, from veterans, single parents struggling to support their families, elderly people living on social security, to even those in the middle class. When even those who once had stable jobs, who thought they were safe, are starting to be knocked down. Can you be sure you won't be the next one? In today's video, join me as we explore the dark corners of the explosive homelessness crisis in New York, to uncover the reasons why a city once symbolizing opportunity, hope, and pride is becoming a mirror reflecting the decay of an entire nation. As usual, this is not a pessimistic warning, but a perspective reflecting multiple sources to help the community understand better and prepare proactively. Are you ready to explore the dark side of the most vibrant and luxurious city in America? Let's get started right now. Have you ever imagined that just stepping out of a subway station in New York, once dubbed the heart of America, you would find yourself walking past long lines of people sleeping on the cold, hard concrete? This is not a fictional scene from the movie The Last of Us, nor is it in some distant country, but right in the city once considered the symbol of the American dream. New York, the city of lights, of opportunity, of proud skyscrapers. But it is also the place where the American dream of millions of people comes to an end. Can you believe it? For every 106 people, there is one person living in homelessness. That number doesn't appear in travel brochures, nor does it show up on flashy posters outside the airport. It is quietly fracturing from within, then erupting like a tremor, causing hundreds of thousands of people who were once workers, fathers, mothers, retired soldiers, to be thrown out of their homes and struggle to find a place to sleep overnight. More than 132,000 people sleep in temporary shelters every night. But do you know what's even more heartbreaking? That more than 70% of them are families. The children sleep amidst the loud noise and dim light, unaware of where tomorrow's breakfast will come from. They are the elderly who have worked their whole lives, now shivering from the cold, from hunger, but above all, from the feeling of being forgotten by society. Places that were once symbols like Central Park or Times Square now cannot escape that scene either. No longer a place where dreams begin, but a place where dreams have ended, giving rise to a nightmare taking shape. The makeshift tents, the smell of garbage and urine rising in the air, overshadow the twinkling lights of the sleepless city with the crisis of a homelessness pandemic. And the irony is, these people do not come from a distant world. They are American citizens, like you, like me. They used to pay taxes, used to work, used to believe that just by trying hard, they would have a peaceful, happy life. But then, an unexpected event, losing a job, rising rent, illness, was enough to push them out of their safe circle. They are not lazy, nor are they avoiding responsibility. They are simply the ones left behind in a system that is increasingly turning its back on those who once shouldered it. Why can't such a wealthy city, with penthouses worth tens of millions of dollars, even ensure a roof over the heads of those who helped build it? If even the class that was once considered the backbone of America no longer has a place to return to, could this be a sign of the collapse of a world superpower? Something is wrong happening in this America, when those who once contributed, donned military uniforms, stood on the front lines for the nation, are now cast out onto the cold streets like nameless shadows. Gerald, a veteran who dedicated his entire life to America, had to use his military survival skills to survive in the harsh heart of New York City. Gerald is not an ordinary homeless person. He is a veteran. He once believed in ideals, once thought that his sacrifice was necessary to build a prosperous America. But now, when he is old and frail, what he receives in return are cold nights huddled on the sidewalk and indifferent looks from society. Although he had once experienced wartime with its perilous and challenging days, for him, the days of survival on the sidewalks of New York have become more difficult than ever.
Because it's never easy out here. Never. People are cruel, people are insulted, they want to hurt you.
There is a fear that no type of military training can prepare him for: the oblivion of humanity. When a retired soldier is pushed out onto the street and has to beg passers-by not to mistreat him, we are no longer talking about an individual failure. This is the collapse of an entire system. For Gerald, or for anyone who has no place to return to, each passing day is a battle. Not with smoke and fire, but with the cold, the hunger, and the judgmental looks from those who have forgotten who he once was. His stomach is empty, his sleep is restless, and the glorious past is now just a wrinkle on his weathered face. And Gerald is not alone. Randy, another homeless man, has been living on the streets for the past 3 years. It's not for any particular reason, but simply because of the cracks in relationships that caused him to fall, and no one reached out to pull him up. Look at his body trembling violently, with swollen, blackened hands due to severe frostbite. For Randy, winter is like a slow sentence. He collects recyclables, begs on the street, and then gets arrested, thrown in jail for 30 days just for trying to survive outdoors in the freezing winter weather of Syracuse.
Michelle, to be alive. Second, for us to have a nice apartment. Third, to help all the homeless people.
The wish of someone who has nothing left to lose, but still has a warm, beating heart and compassion to share with others. And Randy is not the only homeless person who has to endure the harsh cold of the weather and the difficulties of living on the sidewalk. Bill had been wandering and became homeless for a long time. He suffers from PTSD after many years of struggling with unhealable wounds. The social shelters, which should have been a refuge, pose more dangers for him than the streets.
Well, it's no fun, but I have to do it.
It's not just a place of deprivation, but also a place where people easily lose their dignity. In the choice between the cold and fear, Bill chose the cold. However, amidst the harsh winter, what makes people choke up is not just Bill's circumstances, but the way he still retains the most beautiful part of his humanity.
I try to maintain good karma, even though I have ridiculous thoughts.
Although he had thought many times about terrible things for himself, he had never once let his soul be tainted. What keeps him here, perhaps, is not the house, but rather a heart that still wants to believe in something good. In New York, where luxury cars zoom past sidewalks, where people are shivering under thin blankets, that contrast is too cruel. The city of lights, yet it is a place where forgotten lives dwell in darkness. And the painful truth is, they are not the exception. They are part of an ever-growing wave, a homelessness crisis that is exploding, shattering the glossy facade of modern America. Has kindness become a luxury in this society? Are we looking at our own future when we are forgotten, when society has no place for the weak? Do you remember the last time you felt safe? Not the kind of safety that keeps you from an accident or a fall, but the feeling of certainty that tomorrow you will still have a roof over your head, that you can still pay your bills on time, that you can still buy a full meal without having to count every single penny. In New York today, that feeling is gradually becoming a luxury, even for those in the middle class. The paradox is, in one of the wealthiest cities in the world, where real estate values can reach billions of dollars, it is a place where a full-time worker still cannot afford to rent a small apartment. It's not because they are lazy or not trying, but because the cost of living here is rising so fast that it overwhelms anyone not in the top 5% of income earners.
My salary, I get paid $9 an hour. So you do the math.
Let's do a little math together. With a wage of $9 per hour, the average monthly income will be around $2,000 if you work hard all week with overtime. Meanwhile, the average rent in New York has increased by more than 39% compared to the national average. Especially in a major city like Manhattan, this figure has exceeded $5,200 a month. Thus, if we compare these numbers, your hard-earned monthly income might not even be enough to cover half of the rent in New York. The rent in this city has become a dream figure that no one even dares to dream of, even in their sleep. And what's even scarier is that this is no longer just the story of the poor. The middle class, once considered the backbone of America, is gradually being eroded by those very soulless numbers. An apartment that used to be rented for $800 10 years ago in the Bronx is now being pushed up to $2,500, or renovated to be sold to foreign investors. In this battle, the middle class is not entirely excluded, but they are gradually disappearing. No longer considered stable, they have become vulnerable individuals, having to choose between paying rent or buying medicine for their children, between a warm meal or a night with electric heating. Even more heartbreaking is the group of elderly people, those who once contributed to building this city, who are the first to be swept out of that safety net. When their pensions are only enough to cover half of the rent, they are forced to retreat to places that no longer feel truly alive. This situation is not just a consequence of the real estate market. It is a clear symptom of a society that is losing its ability to protect the vulnerable, prioritizing profit over human dignity. The rapid disappearance of affordable housing has caused the entire income of millions of New Yorkers to dissipate, even those who were once considered the most resilient in the face of any storm. If even the middle class no longer have a place to hold on to, what can we expect for those who are weaker than them? New York may continue to live on, but it will be a city reserved for the strong and a graveyard for the dreams of millions of others. Have you ever thought that living like an ordinary person, just having 3 simple meals, a warm enough home in winter, and a timely health check, could also become a luxury? In today's New York, that's no longer an exaggeration. We often talk about skyrocketing rent prices, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, because you will not be able to fully grasp the weight of normal life if you haven't lived in New York. A loaf of bread that used to cost less than $5 now can make a simple breakfast cost nearly $20. A dozen eggs, once the cheapest item in the fridge, can now cost up to $12.49. This figure exceeds the minimum wage for an hour of work, making simple foods gradually become a luxury in American meals. According to Numbeo and Bloomberg, New York has surpassed San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. to become the most expensive place to live in the United States. Those numbers are no longer just statistics. They have become an obsession. Because you can work 8 to 10 hours a day, but still can't afford 3 nutritious meals. A full-time worker can still fall into the state of food insecurity. Not because of laziness, but because living in New York means every day is a survival battle against the cost of living. And if you are an elderly person, everything becomes even harsher. Even when living as frugally as possible, you still have to spend about $1,200 to $1,500 each month just on basic needs like electricity, water, gas, internet, medicine, and transportation, not to mention rent. Going to the doctor has also become a luxury, not because they fear illness, but because they fear the bill. Living in New York now feels like you are being heavily taxed for the American dreams you once cherished. If the ordinary has become too extravagant, is the American dream being redefined by a price tag? There is a strange thing that happens when you live too long amidst the stark contrast of wealth and poverty. You start to see the poverty as something obvious. The homeless person huddled on the street has gradually become a part of the urban landscape. The way society views the homeless in New York and across the United States is no longer just a humanitarian issue. It is systemic indifference. We don't just forget them. We label them with society's prejudices. Those prejudices, simple, understandable, but brutally harsh, become an invisible barrier, helping us maintain a safe distance from an uncomfortable reality. Many of them were once just like us. An accident, a medical bill, a job loss, is enough to push someone from a small apartment to the sidewalk. This system does not allow for mistakes, and once you fall out of the safety net, you have almost no way back. However, instead of looking at the root causes, society looks at the form. Worse yet, policies also reflect this distorted perspective. Some wealthy neighborhoods in Manhattan vehemently oppose the construction of shelters near their area. The reason? Affecting safety and property values. People who once lived in the same city, the same country, now treated like things that need to be moved elsewhere. No one says it out loud, but every action reflects that. And sadly, many people believe that they deserve to be treated that way. But does anyone really want to live without a home? Has anyone ever dreamed of a future under the warm roof of a cozy home? Perhaps only when you sit down and listen to the story of someone who used to be a construction worker, who paid taxes for decades, now having to sleep on a park bench because of one layoff and losing their home. Will you realize they are not different from us? They are us, just a few steps ahead, in the free fall that anyone can face. How can a society stop viewing the poor as shadows to be avoided and start seeing them as real human beings, with pains, dreams, and dignity that everyone deserves? Have you ever wondered why, in the midst of one of the wealthiest, most glamorous cities in the world, there are still people huddled under streetlights next to a store selling Rolex watches worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? New York didn't fall in one night. It cracks slowly, like an old building that gets a fresh coat of paint every year. Although the issue of homelessness in New York has gradually become a crisis. However, in the storm, there are still people who hold their heads high. New York, in some way, has not stopped fighting. In impoverished neighborhoods like Brownsville or Hunts Point, where statistics often highlight crime and unemployment, you will find single mothers setting up small classes in abandoned churches to teach children how to read. Those who once lived under the open sky now return to volunteer in shelters, not because they are wealthy, but because they understand the cost of being forgotten. The city government, though faltering, is not completely silent. A few notable efforts, such as the Safe Haven program, have moved thousands of people off the streets and into more stable temporary housing. Of course, this number is just a drop in the ocean. But for someone who has just had a peaceful sleep after many cold nights, it means the world. Residential communities are also starting to organize themselves without waiting for the city halls to speak up. In Queens, a group of retirees set up a mobile kitchen from an old RV, cooking hundreds of hot meals each week. New York's resilience does not lie in its tallest buildings or skyrocketing real estate values. It lies in the people, in those who still choose to stay, still strive to build something, even if small, amidst a city in turmoil. They do not hope that the government will save them. They know that if there is a miracle, they themselves must be the ones to create it. Can a city that is gradually losing its soul find itself again? That is the question many people are whispering when talking about the future of New York. New York used to be a symbol of opportunity. People came here with tattered suitcases, pockets empty of even a dime, just to stand in the middle of Times Square dreaming of a better life. But now, that dream is shattering. Not because the people have lost hope, but because the system seems to have no room for hope anymore. The rent has reached an unimaginable level. A shabby apartment in Harlem can also consume all of an elderly person's pension. The minimum wage is stagnant, while gas prices, electricity rates, and food costs keep rising. And every time the city redevelops, hundreds more poor families are pushed to the margins, sometimes literally onto the sidewalks. However, the future is not something vague or distant. It is being shaped day by day, decision by decision. In Albany, lawmakers are under pressure from both sides. On one side, the massive real estate industry with its nearly endless lobbying budget. And on the other side, hundreds of thousands of residents holding banners in the streets, demanding to live like human beings. Rent control policies, budgets for social housing, police reform, all of these are small pieces. But if they go in the right direction, they can gradually mend the torn map of New York. Each of those actions, each of those initiatives, no matter how small, are quietly laying the groundwork for a different future. A future where compassion can overshadow hardship, where human value is not measured by account balances, but by how they live and help each other survive. Does this city have enough time to wait? When the youth are leaving in droves, the elderly are struggling day by day, and the poorest are being pushed further away from the center. Is there anyone left to keep the soul of New York? A city is not just buildings or streets. It is memories. It is community. It is faith in something better. If New York can still hold on to those things, then no matter how dark it gets, there is still a chance for revival. But if we lose those who are willing to believe in this city, then at that point, will New York still be a place to dream of the American dream? There are cities that gradually crumble without anyone noticing, because the noise remains bustling, the lights still shine, and the streets are still crowded. But that decay does not lie on the surface. It lies in the way people stop caring for each other, stop seeing each other, stop believing that a place can become better. New York is not an ordinary city. It is a mirror reflecting America, a place where you can see dreams woven with neon lights, but also nightmares lying dormant on the cold sidewalks. This city still has a chance. It has people who fight quietly every day, in community centers, in churches, in soup kitchens, to preserve humanity. It has a history of rebirth after crises, after pandemics, after long and cold winters. But this time, the wounds seem deeper, because they lie right at the heart. Division, indifference, and the acceptance of a harsh reality as if it were inevitable. Maybe you don't live in New York, but the story of this homelessness crisis is no longer just a tale of one city. It is gradually becoming the story of the entire United States. What do you think about the homelessness issue in New York? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Please note, the information in the video is compiled from public and reliable sources aimed at analysis and providing a reference perspective. The video is not intended to incite, criticize individuals, or provide financial legal advice. Viewers should consider additional information before making a decision.